Well, Texas is bringing home a pile of gold stored in New York City. Everybody wants to get their gold back home before something happens to it. The man who spearheaded the Texas Gold Repatriation Program is State Representative Giovanni Capriglione. Sir, welcome to True News.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I think you represent the district where I used to live. When I first moved to Dallas-Fort Worth, we were there in the Colleyville area.
That's right. Represent Colleyville, Southlake, Keller, and Grapevine, parts of North Fort Worth and Westlake.
That's it. I lived there on Pleasant Run Road.
That's it. I live right off of that, so that's great.
All right. Well, glad to have you on the program. Tell us why were you motivated to repatriate Texas gold?
Well, I think a lot of the genesis for this concept started, for me at least, in 2008 when we saw basically a global economic recession. And it really kind of brought to bear the idea that we really do need to have some sort of plan B, if you will, when it comes to how we do transactions, and so that people can be assured of being able to make payments, receive them, and so on. And so gold has always been that alternative. And started working on this legislation in a prior session. It didn't make it out of committee. We tweaked it a little bit, and happy to say that it passed this session and was signed into law just about a month ago.
Now, which Texas agency legally owns the gold?
Right. So what the bill does is it's going to be run by the Comptroller's office, and it's going to create a depository here in the state of Texas. It's going to be controlled and managed by the state of Texas. Now, the state of Texas, through some of its subsidiaries, but more specifically what's been in the news is the University of Texas's investment management company, part of their endowment, they actually have physical gold assets that they store in HSBC Bank in New York City. And as part of the thinking is that once this depository is created, we'd like to be able to bring some of that or all of that gold actually back from New York City. Part of the rationale for doing it, for bringing the gold back from New York City is why should we be paying for it in New York City, right? I mean, if we have a depository here in the state of Texas, it should come here. But there's a lot more to the bill that's also pretty interesting as well.
How much gold?
UTIMCO has it's just over 5,000 bars. It's a total of, in today's prices, worth about $650 million worth of gold.
$650 million. Now,
yes.
Let's go back to the original question. Why not leave it in New York City with the good folks there at HSBC in Manhattan?
Well, I get this question a lot, and I guess the answer is what would you do if you had $650 million of assets that you're paying for somewhere else, right? You always want to be able to keep it closer to home, be able to audit it, be able to have it, as long as it's liquid, and it has all the same, ability to do transactions in Texas. To me, the question is why not, right? And we're paying, state of Texas or UTIMCO is paying, a significant fee to have it stored there, and it just makes financial sense to move it here. But what the bill also does, and it's probably the bigger part of it, is besides creating this depository, not just University of Texas can put their gold in there, but any private individual, any corporation, any governmental entity that wants can make investments in, and they can store their precious metals in this depository. So I really expect this to be kind of a vault, a warehouse, if you will, where people from all over the world will be able to store their gold in Texas.
So this depository, it will actually be open for business to the public.
It will. It'll be able to accept deposits from individuals and corporations. You just have to set up an account, and you'll be able to store it safely and securely in a state depository. But the really interesting part about the depository, which hasn't been getting a lot of press, I'm glad to share it with you, is that most of the bill, what it concerns is basically a bank function that's inside of this depository. So with this depository, private individuals, again, all those same entities, you'll be able to purchase goods. You'll be able to use the assets that you have in the vault the same way you would be able to use cash. anywhere else.
Hey, I've not heard this at all. I've not read this in any article.
They're all focused on whether there's gold and the convoy and the Die Hard 3 aspect of this. But really
you're telling me that Texas is setting up a gold-backed bank?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what this really does. I mean,
is this the first time you've told this publicly on national radio or television?
I've told, but this is the first time anyone's paid attention to that part of it. What it does is again, this is a 30-page bill. One page of it talks about the creation of the depository and so on, but the rest of it talks about the banking function. And this is different than your traditional bank. A traditional bank lends money, right? A traditional bank can go and do derivatives or attached to the Federal Reserve. And so because of that, as you know, and especially if you're in Greece right now, you know that if you go to a bank and everybody went to the bank and tried to get their deposits out, there's not enough paper money to cover it, right? And that causes a whole bunch of concerns. What this depository does is it doesn't allow that lending. If there's 5,000 bars of gold in there, there'll be 5,000 gold bars there, and you'll be able to access your deposits directly upon demand.
So if I had $100,000 worth of gold coins and I put it into the Texas Depository, essentially I could write checks on it.
You can write checks. You can write checks to individuals who have gold depository accounts, and you'll also be able to write checks to individuals and corporations that don't have gold depository banks. We set up a system of depository agents, so you can have any corporation, any group, whatever, basically start a depository agent, and they can send and receive through this depository outside of the Federal Reserve System.
So if I had $100,000 worth of gold and I wrote a check for $20,000, the check clears, whoever I'm buying something from gets their $20,000.
Yep.
What happens to the $20,000 worth of gold that was in my account?
Right. So what happens is that $20,000 worth of gold goes into the other person's account. So we're not. So if you think about it in terms of, let's say there's a gold, let's use terms like bars, even though that's a lot of money. But let's just say you have 20 bars and you owe someone at another depository agent 1 bar. They will move 1 bar from your account to their account.
Okay, so the banking is only between people who have deposited gold in the Texas Depository.
Well, but what we also added to the bill was the ability to, and I'm just going to use an example, but let's say Corp A. So Corp A becomes a depository agent. They can put in $100,000 worth of gold, and then you can set up an account with them, and they're the ones who will be moving the gold around. So you yourself don't have to put the gold in. You can put it into a depository agent who will basically be holding onto your gold in this depository and move it around for you. So you can do it by putting in your own gold. You can do it by setting up an account with a depository agent that will act in the same way, and they'll just be the ones that actually put in the initial gold once you give them the cash.
Hey, have you thought about engraving Sam Houston's image on gold coins?
Yes. So on that topic, obviously have to be careful. Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution makes it clear that a state cannot mint its own currency, but it can allow gold and silver to be used as legal tender. So
what's the difference?
Semantics.
Yeah, I've read that many times. What's the difference? Because the Constitution says our debts are to be paid in gold and silver.
That's right. And functionally and practically speaking, with this gold depository, the bill that I authored and passed and got signed into law, you will effectively be able to do just that.
All right, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
I think this is bigger than maybe you realize.
Well, I've learned a lot about the rationale for doing that. Of course, we also put in there the reason we put.
When I say that, I'm saying I think you're going to be overwhelmed by the response.
Well, I think so too. I'll tell you, it was very difficult the first session to get anybody interested in this. I was a freshman. I went to a great extent. It didn't go anywhere. But the second session, we worked a lot harder at explaining it. It passed out of the House. On the House side, I think it was 137-1. Okay? And then we put it on the Senate side. It passed there 27-3, I think. So it was passed pretty much overwhelmingly. The Governor Greg Abbott, he's kind enough to make this one of his ceremonial signings. So we made kind of a big deal for it at the time. And a lot of people are interested in this. My emails, my phones have all been going off the hook. Our challenge now is to go in. Now that it's been in law, the comptroller has already created a task force to go out there and try and learn how to set this up, get all the regulations in place. In reality, we don't necessarily even have to recreate a wheel. We already know how to do bank functions. We already know how to do depository functions. We're just putting those together.
Will the state own and operate it, or will the state license a private corporation to build this?
So the first session, my problem was I'd asked the state to do all of it, and the fiscal note was just huge, right? I mean, it costs a lot of money to create the software to do this. It costs a lot of money for the security and all that kind of stuff. So what we're doing in this time is it will be a contracted source. It will still be the state's depository. It will still be the state's bank, but we're basically going to lease the place. We'll use another company for the security and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it belongs to the state, and that's important because we want to make sure that the state can protect the investors or the people who make the deposits from any sort of motions to try and attempt to if somebody wants to try and seize gold or what have you.
Do you know where it's going to go? I'd Lukenbach. How about Lukenbach?
Well, I'm hoping somewhere in Colleyville and South Lake, to be honest.
Oh, okay, all right.
What we're going to do is it's going to go to a completely transparent public bid, and what we're going to do is we're going to go, and I've heard from some groups that they have empty vaults right now that they're not using, and they want to offer it up. And of course, just like any other vault, they'll be able to charge storage fees, just like any other bank. You could pay a wire transfer fee and all that kind of stuff. And so the state will split the revenues with this private company to manage it, but at the end of the day, this is all regulated and controlled by the state of Texas.
Any possibility that there could be a Texas-style Bitcoin?
Okay, that would be awesome, too. I personally own Bitcoins, and what I would love to see at some point is some sort of Bitcoin operator be one of the depository agents. And if that were to happen, which it could easily happen, by the way, I've looked at that, I've already talked to a couple of people about that, then you would be able to make transactions, with Bitcoins, use the gold depository as the medium, and then make payments on the other side.
Are you acquainted with what Singapore has built regarding gold storage?
No, I'm not.
You might want to look into this. Singapore is seeking to become the Switzerland of Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And the government built this massive complex. It's their Fort Knox.
Mm-hmm.
But inside, once you run through all the security checks to get inside, it's like a shopping mall when you get inside. All of the retailers are precious metals dealers. They all have access to a portion of a very secure vault.
Wow. Okay.
And so the government is encouraging people around the world to store their gold and silver in Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Texas might want to expand on this idea and gold and silver in the United States be kept in Texas.
That's exactly it. I would like Texas to be the Switzerland of the world, and I can see that happening because, as you know, Texas has, besides all the other advantages of being just the greatest state and all that kind of stuff, it also has the advantage of being situated geographically in a perfect location. We're halfway between the East Coast, West Coast, between Canada, South America. We have inland ports, trains, transportation, infrastructure, airports right here near at least my district and other places. And so we would be able to have access. On top of that, Texas has a lot of other commodities like oil and gas. We have our own electric grid. So I really see this as an opportunity for us to create a bigger economic nexus here in the state to be able to go in and provide commodities and other items on demand. But again, really the point of this is, if you're in Florida, maybe it's Regions Bank or someone. They open up a depository here. You go to the bank and, you say, hey, I want my debit card. I want it to be a gold card. It attaches to the Texas State Depository, and you can use it just like any other card, except it's making those payments directly from there. You go to an ATM, you're not relying on a bank to come up with liquidity. There's a definite amount of assets in that bank that you can be guaranteed and assured will be able to get you your deposits.
Have you guys received a visit from Washington yet?
Not yet.
Any jet fighters possibly flying over Colleyville?
On the internet, a lot of people are suggesting that might happen pretty soon. But like I said, I think this is constitutionally sound. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't, obviously the federal government always tries to do stuff that I think oversteps its bounds. But what we're trying to do here in Texas is lead the nation and say, listen, we don't need to go and print money. We don't need to go and do all of these other right things. We want to be assured that when a resident or anybody else who puts a deposit in here can take their money out. And it's in gold. And so, therefore, it's disconnected from the rest of the monetary system.
This is the biggest threat in 102 years to the Federal Reserve System.
Yeah. This could very well make the Federal Reserve System unnecessary, especially if other states, and I've heard from at least one other rep in another state who's thinking about filing this legislation as well. Once we have that ability to do interstate, intergovernmental transactions,
we don't need the Federal Reserve anymore.
That's right.
Each state could set up its own gold depository, and we could tell the banksters at the Federal Reserve where they can go.
Well, they can go and set up an account at our state bank.
Yeah, but they don't understand gold. That's what they said. They don't understand why all these people want to have gold when you could have paper money printed by the Federal Reserve.
Again, you can go to Greece and ask them what they think about the paper money system.
Yeah, that's not looking too good right there. Is any of this motivated by concern among Texas legislators that things might go south in the United States like Greece?
I think this is more motivated by the fact that, in 2008, again, we just saw massive amounts of capital leaving banks, leaving the country, right? I mean, look at what's going on in Asia right now if you're an investor in their stock market. So there's always going to be this fear. But as we build this global economy, we realize that we're just stacked together like dominoes. I mean, the reason why Greece is a big deal because Italy and Spain could be next, right? And then, so we're all so very well connected. And so I think just from the fact that, to help improve consumer confidence, let's just have something else. And once that's there, I think consumer confidence is bolstered and any potential issues get mitigated.
I'm really thinking, I really believe that you're going to see a lot of action from other southern and western states in the coming 6 months that are going to be contacting you and Texas officials saying, we want to work together.
Yeah.
We want to do the same thing.
I think so, too.
All right, Texas State Representative Giovanni Capriglione, you're onto something awesome, man. This is fantastic.
Great, thank you.
Only in Texas.
Only in Texas is right.